Welcome to the Divorce Liberator broadcast. I'm Andrea M. Stuckey, and this is where we talk about all things life, love, and lessons after divorce. Well, it's an amazing day. Thank you so much for joining me on episode 2 of the Divorce Liberator podcast. I hope that you had a chance to catch episode 1 from last week. It was the first episode of the season where I dedicated it to my dad. So if you didn't get an opportunity to check out episode 1, make sure that you do that. So listen, these 7 days have passed by really quickly, and there's a lot going on. Not only has the season is changing, and pollen and beautiful flowers, which is all really, really nice because I'm a warm weather girl. But it's also that time of the year for prom, graduations, banquets, right? Prom dresses, prom shoes, graduation dresses, all those good stuff, invitations and dinner. And I'm excited. My youngest daughter is about to graduate in 1 month. I cannot believe it. When I went through my separation, my daughter Gabby was 6 years old. And let me tell you, it was a very challenging time. I was homeschooling her at the time for first grade, and following that second grade, she was in private school. I put her in private school, and here we are, at the first finish line. She's about to graduate, super excited. She's accepted to college. She's got a $32,000 merit scholarship, and just super, super proud. And I'm mentioning it to those of you who are single parents, those of you who are co-parenting. Because when we are raising our children as a single parent, men and women, there are times when it is difficult. There are times when we are stretched. There are times when we're wondering if what we're teaching and training them is really getting inside of that forehead, right? And I just want to encourage you that no matter where you are, you might have, littles, 5 and under. You might have school-age children, lots of activities, parent-teacher, meetings, and you're trying to stretch yourself as one person. And of course, depending on the level of interaction that you have with the other parent, it can be overwhelming, right? But I want to encourage you to stay in the trenches with your children. Continue to impart, continue to give to them. Even when you're stretched, you still have to take time for yourself. But you can do this. You can do this. And this is my second child going to college. My oldest was 16 when I separated and went on to college at 18. So I just want to encourage you, as I'm facing this, this change of season for my life and for my daughter's life, but I want to encourage you as well that I know when you're in the thick of it, sometimes it can be daunting and overwhelming, but just take it one day at a time and keep moving forward with your children, keep imparting into them, keep praying over them, and all things will work together for the good. I promise you that. So today I want to talk about don't skip the process. Listen, I've been divorced twice. And y'all going to hear me say that almost every podcast, right? But I've been divorced twice. And let me tell you, there are some things in this journey of a divorce or divorce recovery that you simply just have to go through. And one of the things I've seen in my own life, and at the taping of this broadcast as you're listening, I'm 11 and a half years, almost 12 years out of my second marriage. As you're going through divorce recovery and you're healing and changing and transitioning, one of the things that I've learned not only in my own life, but with working with women for over 6 years as a divorce coach, is that you cannot skip the process. And let me be really clear. You can skip it, right? Because you're an adult. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. But the repercussions of certain pieces of divorce recovery will come back to haunt you, if you will. And so I want to talk about that on today. And the first thing I want to share with you, first of all, I know how challenging separation and divorce is, especially that first 5 years, because there's so many changes going on. But I want you to know that you're stronger than you think, that you're an overcomer. No matter what you're facing today, you will be able to overcome this. You will be able to get through it. You just make sure you have a support system. And if you're listening to this broadcast and you are a believer, a follower of Christ, right, a disciple of Christ, then listen, you got to lean in on the arms of the Lord. Right? And that's in the spiritual. And there's also things you have to do in the natural. And I'm going to talk about that on today as well. But I want you to know that it's so important that you don't skip the process. Healing is available to you. Recovery from this divorce is available to you. But it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. Now, that process and transition is different for everyone, right? And so I'm going to talk a little bit today. I have three little areas that I want to share with you that I think is really, really important as you're moving along your divorce space. And I know that, we're going to have listeners who you may have even been out of a divorce for 8, 10 years maybe, right? But if you haven't sort of gone through these spaces, then I just challenge you today to sort of self-assess and assess where you are on your divorce journey and see if any of these areas that I'm going to discuss today are applicable to you. Don't skip the process. The first part of that process is gaining control over your emotions. And what I mean by that is, listen, you all know if you've been there, divorce is an emotional roller coaster ride, whether you wanted to stay in the marriage or whether you wanted to leave the marriage. It does not matter. The range of emotions can overtake you at times. Sometimes you can feel super excited in a way, right? That you're free, that you have a little bit of peace. Excuse me. That you have a little bit of peace in your life, that maybe you came out of a tumultuous relationship. And then in the next moment, you feel, hurt, betrayed, you feel rejected, you feel angry, right? You may even feel lonely. So many emotions. But the key point of this section or area is that you have to work through those feelings. And a lot of times what happens is individuals will deny the feelings and try to sort of shove them down, if you will, and do other things to compensate. All right. So whether it's maybe, work a lot, exercise a lot, overeat, different activities, putting a lot of energy into your children, which is a good thing, but not dealing with your feelings, right? And putting energy into your children. Those two combinations don't work together because eventually those emotions will come up. They are definitely going to come up. And it's so important to your healing that you feel those emotions. And a lot of times we don't want to cry, we don't want to be upset, but you got to work through them. You have to work through them. So I want you to give yourself grace. I want you to be able to accept the fact that, hey, having these emotions is a normal part of going through a separation or divorce. You were married. God joined you two together as one. So regardless of the reasoning for the divorce, no judgment here. Right? But there is a breaking, if you will, of that bond. And that's a difficult process. Right? And oftentimes you had shared thoughts and dreams and hopes that for whatever reason, there's a plethora of reasons people get divorced. But the bottom line is they will not come to fruition. Right? And you have to work through that. So I just want to challenge you today that if you haven't dealt with those negative emotions, if you've been burying them, if you've been, trying to push them to the side, all it's going to do is come up later. It's just like the lava in a volcano. It's waiting to erupt. And unfortunately, what happens, I've seen it in my own life and I've seen it in the lives of women that I have consulted and coached with. It will come up in the most inopportune times. And so it's better as early as you can, if you can, to work through those emotions and get that healing, right? And so sometimes you may need therapy depending on your past experiences. If there's anything traumatic that has happened, abuse, you may need some therapy. Coaching is a wonderful way to help you, look forward and create strategies and plan to help you move your life forward, right? Whether it's physically, spiritually, socially, financially, um, or physically, right? And sometimes you can pick up books, and do your own study on whatever you're dealing with, right? And also journaling is a great way to release a lot of those feelings. But you got to do something to work through those feelings because if not, they will show up. And they may show up in the next relationship. They may show up in how you treat friends or family or even your children. So take the time to work through those emotions, and that way you can get them under control, if you will, after you've worked through them, and it's going to be better for you in the long run. Trust me on that. One of the major mistakes I did was that my first marriage, my first husband, literally walked out. And I've never, honestly, at this recording, I've never seen him again in over 26 or 7 years. And so because he was absent, not only physically, but I literally did not talk to him ever again, then I buried those feelings of rejection, right? Because I didn't have to come in contact with him nor hear him. So I just sort of put those things to the side and kept operating in survival mode, if you know what I mean, and moving forward. But I brought a lot of that hidden baggage into my second marriage. Now, let me be clear. We created some of our own baggage in the second marriage, right? But I can own what I brought into the marriage. There were a lot of issues that I had not dealt with from my first marriage, and I brought that into the second marriage. And let me tell you, they began to erupt and they began to show up at the most inopportune time in that next marriage. And so I don't want that for you. So it's so important to work through it. If you're not sure, hire a therapist, hire a coach, someone you can talk to at least one session to kind of help you unpack to see where you are emotionally since your separation or divorce if you're unsure. The next area is rebuilding your new life. You can't skip the process. You can't skip the emotional part. And you definitely can't skip the rebuilding your life aspect. And what I mean by that is the logistical piece of literally rebuilding your life. Whether you're moving out of the house or your spouse is moving out of the house. Whether you have to make a parenting plan for co-parenting, file for child support, fill out papers with your attorney. There's a host of transition and literal changes that you have to deal with, right? And sometimes in conjunction with the emotions that you're dealing with, you don't want to do these things. You don't want to face the co-parenting issues. You don't want to face the child support or, whatever those things you need to do. Get a job, get another job, change careers, move your home, all of these things. But you can't skip the process. If you don't deal with the co-parenting issue, if you have children, that's going to come up down the road. If you don't handle the child support aspect, that's going to come up down the road, right? If you don't make a new budget based on your new financial situation, you're going to have some problems down the road. Because regardless of income, the reality is, at least initially, you're taking two incomes, and now that supported one household will now be supporting two households, or you took one income and now in the other household, there may be no income or somebody's trying to find a job or, establish a career, so there is a financial transition for sure, at least for a short period of time until things level out on either side, right? So these are some things that you have to face and go through, and make sure you have a good support system. Right? Even the little things like household responsibilities and new duties that you didn't have to do before. For me, for 13 years in my marriage, I didn't change filters in the house. I didn't change light bulbs. I didn't take the trash out. I didn't do any car maintenance. So I didn't even do any budgeting because my second husband handled all the finances and he was good at it. But all that was new for me, right? Which, let me just add, I don't like any of it. Even 11 years out, I don't like doing yard work. Okay. I mean, I like it to be beautiful. Okay. I love flowers and all that, but I don't want to do it. So I hire people to do it. Finding a car shop, or if when you need car repairs or you have questions, where people aren't ripping you off as a woman, right? That's tough, right? But I have found a very reputable, car shop if I need any services and things of that nature. So it took me a while to do that. And even simple things like taking out the trash. I still forget to take the trash to the curb sometimes. Right? So these are real life transitions. But I want to encourage you that it's part of the process. And don't try to skip the process. Right? Don't skip the process. Just take your time and deal with one issue at a time. Right? And I'll just share with you, as I said earlier, I was homeschooling. I moved 20 miles away. I was homeschooling my children the first year that we were separated. And I didn't want to make too many changes at once, right? Moving them away to a new community and changing them and putting them in traditional school. I didn't do that. I waited about a year. So you can make these changes gradually, right? Doing first things first and sort of adding things onto that. But they still have to be done. And that's part of rebuilding your new life. And here's the thing, you get to create this new life. Right? So it doesn't have to be such a daunting process. I know it's difficult and challenging, but there can also be an upside to that as well. You get to create your new space. You get to create new friends if that's what you're looking for. You get to create this next season of your life. Right? You get to create that. Rebuilding your new life. And then lastly today, and there's so much more, but these are areas that I wanted to share with you on today. What's so important as you're working through this process of divorce and divorce recovery is that you work on yourself. That you begin to redefine you, who you are now. And oftentimes, especially as women, we have put ourselves, our desires, our dreams, our interests on the back burner for our spouses and our children. And oftentimes when we come out of these marriages, we're lost. We don't know what we really like to do by ourselves or our interests. Oftentimes we find our identity in our relationships or being married or the identity of our spouse and or the achievements of our children. And so now this is a time for you to work on yourself, to get to know you again, to give you what you need. Right? Which parts of yourself did you lose? Who are you now? What do you need the most at this very moment? Is it time, peace, money, travel, increased confidence? What is it that you need right now? This is a time to spend on you. Redefine yourself. And all these things matter because as you're learning more about yourself and understanding yourself, you can begin to trust yourself, right? And oftentimes what happens is when we're moving forward and, I'll be talking about dating. I'm going to have some great episodes regarding dating and some of my dating experiences. And I'm also going to be inviting my love of my life currently, Mr. P, to the broadcast. I'm in a great relationship. But here's the thing. If you don't do these other steps, if you will, if you skip the process, what happens is when the time comes that you desire to be in a relationship, if you do, everyone doesn't, that a lot of these old things will come up. If you don't deal with your insecurities, you're not going to be able to trust someone else. If you don't take care of yourself and get to know who you are and commit to yourself and trust yourself, it's going to be very difficult for you to trust someone else. And oftentimes, many of the women that I consult with and coach are interested in dating again, but they're are concerned with trust. And really, when you don't trust other people, it's really because you don't trust yourself. That's right. Oftentimes, we don't trust other people, and I mean other people with a clean slate, okay? Because we don't really trust ourselves. Because here's the reality. When you trust yourself with your own physical body, when you trust yourself with your finances, when you've healed and you trust yourself with your emotions, meaning you understand who you are emotionally, what challenges you have had or currently have emotionally, right? Because it is a process, right? If you trust yourself with your spiritual relationship with our Heavenly Father, then it's much easier to trust someone else, because if they don't do what they say they're going to do, you still have yourself. You still have yourself financially. You still have yourself physically. You still have yourself emotionally, physically, and socially. And yes, it's going to hurt when someone hurts you that you care about, but there's a different perspective. And you have to build up the trust that you have for yourself by keeping your commitments to yourself in whatever areas that you need to grow and change to be the person that you desire to be after coming through such a tumultuous time as a separation and divorce. This is your time and season where you get to create this next season of your life. And you deserve the very best. I know that it's tough, but you can do this. You are more than an overcomer. And what you have to do in those very difficult times is, number one, you have to pray. And you have to pray really all the time, because God is our strength, right? The joy of the Lord is our strength, right? And even in the midst of challenging times, we can find peace and joy in the love of Christ if we develop that relationship with the Lord, right? You're going to get through this. God still loves you. Do not allow other people's opinions, other people trying to make you feel guilty or shame or blame. Do not allow that to overtake you. Listen, yes, God hates divorce, but God loves you. There is no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. God is a forgiving God. And you get the opportunity to create this next season. The Lord knows every single thing you've gone through. He loves you, and He still has a plan for your life. It does not matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how many children you have. It doesn't matter what your income level is. God still loves you. Don't skip the process. Work through those emotions. Take care of the logistical side of life, the things that you have to take care of. And spend time getting to know you again. Listen, I am Andrea M. Stuckey, the Divorce Liberator and your favorite divorce coach. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode 2 of the Divorce Liberator podcast. I'm so excited to be back on the air and be able to come and share with you each and every Wednesday evening with a new podcast. So I'm looking forward to sharing some dating dilemmas with you, some experiences with this new love that I have. And also, I have interviews that are coming up with some very, very special people. And so I'm just looking forward to you. Thank you so much. Make sure that you share out. And if you need to get in contact with me, just go to my website, AndreaMStuckey.com, AndreaMStuckey.com. And from there, you can find all my social media platforms, links to my book and my store and all those great things. And I'm just super excited. So have a wonderful and blessed day. And I will see you next time.